Hello, this is Dr. Morgan. We're going to work today on the Math 1 Unit 4 Intervention or Practice Test. This is exactly like the test you'll be taking, except the numbers have been changed. If you understand how to work these problems, you will do well on the test. So let's begin. Problem number 1, which coordinate represents the solution of the system of equations? So we're going to solve this, and noticing here, first off, I notice that they're both solved for y. Whenever you have one solved for y, we're going to use the substitution method, which since y equals that, I'm going to just plug that in for y there, and then I go from two equations in two variables to one equation in one variable. So I'll put that in there, and so I'll write here for x, for y, I'm going to put 2x minus 3, I put the parentheses just to help me remember I substituted it in there, equals minus 3x plus 7. And now we have a simple equation. In this equation, our strategy is to get the x's on one side and the numbers on the other. So I'm going to start by moving the minus 3x. To get rid of it on one side, I'll add 3x, the opposite of subtracting it. To keep the equation equal, I'll do the same on the other side. So these will go away. That's what I wanted. And over here, 3x and 2x is 5x. So I have 5x minus 3 equals 7. Now we're going to try to get the numbers on that side, so the opposite of subtracting 3 is adding 3. So that will get rid of it there, but to keep the equation in balance, I've got to add 3 on this side as well. So now I have 5x equals 10. And now we're going to undo 5 times x. The opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5. Again, do both sides, and we get that x equals 2, and so we're halfway there. Our x is 2, and now we just have to find out what y is. So let's come back over here and plug it into the equation. So y equals 2, and we know that x is 2 minus 3. So our answer is y equals 4 minus 3, or y equals 1. So that means our answer in this case is 2, 1. Now, if we want to be extra sure, what we'll do is we'll substitute it into the second equation and check. So if I want to check my answer to make sure I didn't make a mistake, I'll put here and I'll ask myself the question, does 1, y, equal minus 3 times 2 plus 7? Well, minus 3 times 2 is negative 6 plus 7, and look, 1 equals 1, so I know I did the problem right. So I didn't have to worry about my teacher checking it because I know I did that one right. So that's problem 1. Problem 2. In this time, we have a situation where, let me write them right here. Now, this one we're going to have to use the elimination method. We could solve for x or y, but it would take a couple of steps, and so it's easier to go to elimination. We have two choices. We could either get rid of the x's by multiplying by negative 1, or we could get rid of the y's by multiplying down here by a 4. Okay? I'm going to do this one here. I'm going to look at my x's here and say, you know what? If I changed one of them to negative, then when I add them, they go away. So I'm going to take the bottom one here, and I'm going to multiply the whole equation by negative 1. Now, I typically rewrite both of them again because I find when I don't, I'll make mistakes. So the first one we didn't change. The second one we multiplied everything by negative 1. So negative 1 times negative times 2 is negative 2x. Negative 1 times negative y is plus y. And negative 1 times 5 is minus 5. Now we have what we want. We can add them, and 2x minus 2x is 0. That's the elimination we were looking for. So we add here and we get 5y. 10 minus 5 is 5. Undo this, divide by 5, and we get y equals 1. So we're halfway there again. And it's just like before, now we're going to plug this into one of these to find out what it is. So I'm going to plug it into the first one. So the first one, we have 2x plus 4, and then we're going to put in 1 equals 10. So that's 2x plus 4 equals 10. And now we just have a two-step equation. Undo the addition first by subtracting 4 from both sides. We get 2x equals 6. And now undo multiply by 2 by dividing by 2. That makes that a 1. And we get x equals 3. And so our answer here is 3, 1. Now be careful when you do this one, because we did the y first. Sometimes students will accidentally put in here 1, 3 because they solved that one first. But remember, it's always x, y. And if we want to check it, because we use that equation, we would check it with the other equation here. So let's put that in and see if it works. 2 times x, 2 times 3, minus 1, does that equal 5? Well, this is 6 minus 1 equals 5, and sure enough, 5 of 5 equals 1, and we know that we've done our problem correctly. So that's the first two answers. All right, now the next section, we're simply looking at a graph and answering some questions about the relationships of the points. The first question is, name the point where f of x equals g of x. Well, that's going to be, where does f of x, notice here's f of x, where does f of x cross the line g of x? And the answer is right there at point G. So our answer is point G. Second, fourth question, for f of x, name the point that is the y-intercept where x is 0. Okay, here's my y, and so what I'm looking is, where does f of x cross y? And f of x and y cross right there at point B. Next, for g of x, remember we're going to g, not f, name the point that is the x-intercept where y is 0. Well, here's my x-axis here, and all along here, by the way, y equals 0. Just like all along the y-axis, x equals 0. So they want to know, where does g of x here cross the x-axis? So here's my x-axis, here's that, and it crosses at the point E. And then the last one on this page, name the labeled points on f of x where f of x is bigger than g of x. So what we're looking at is, where along here does this line, is it above this line? Well, you notice if you start down here, f of x is below g of x. Okay? I mean, I would have to go up to get there, so that makes g of x greater, but we're looking for f of x greater, and there it's less, less, less till it becomes equal. And at this point now, notice any point up here is above the g line. So I'm looking for points here, and notice there's two of them, B and C. All right? And that takes care of the first page of our practice test. All right, let's turn to the second page. The first problem gives us a graph and asks us which one represents that, which equation, inequality, represents this graph. Well, the first thing we notice is, I'm going to look at the sign first. I see a solid line, and a solid line tells me that I'm going to have an equal sign, but then it's shaded below. So below means less than or equal. So I know my equation is going to be y is less than or equal to a line. We just got to figure out what line it is. First off, I'm going to look at the y-intercept. It crosses the y-intercept right here at the point 0, minus 3. Okay? So that tells me that I'm going to have something x plus b, and my b in this case is negative 3, so it's going to be minus 3. By the way, at this point, I can immediately see these two are wrong, because they gave us y-intercept of 2, which would be up here. Next, we're going to find the slope. All right? So what we need to do is go from this point and find another point that's easy to see, and I see a point right here. So I notice if I draw my little slope triangle here, I know the rise goes up plus 2, 1, 2, and it goes over 1. So my slope equals the rise over the run, or 2 over 1, or just 2. So 2 is going to go in here. So this is my equation I'm looking for. Y is less than or equal to 2x minus 3, and it's right there. Notice the other answer that they gave you was the same, except they made it greater than, which would be shaded on the other side. So the answer to number 7 is C. Number 8. Given the coordinate plane, which system of inequalities is represented by the dark shaded region here in the intersection of the graph? First thing I want you to notice is if you look at the answers, every answer has the same numbers. 5/4 minus 5 minus 3x plus 12. So all they're really looking at is, do you know which sign should go with these equations? So first of all, let's identify which graph is which. I'm going to call this the first equation. And notice it has a y-intercept of minus 5 down here. So that means my dotted one here, the dashed one, is the first equation. Okay? And that means, notice here, up to 12, this is going to be my second equation here. Just important to make sure so I know what I'm looking at here. So let's see what the first one's going to be. I look at the first equation, and I look here and I notice that it's shaded above. It's above, and it has a dotted line. So that means what I'm looking for here is y, and it's going to be above, so it's going to be greater than 5/4 x minus 5. So I'm looking for a greater than. Okay. Right now, at this point, I can tell already that my answer is going to be A because that's the only one that fits. Okay. See, the rest of them, less than or equal, that would be a solid line. Less than would be shaded below, and this is another less than. So we actually got the answer here, but let's just check out the rest because sometimes they don't fall out that easy. The second one, notice that it also is shaded above, but it has a solid line, so it would be greater than or equal to minus 3x plus 12. And notice it works right there, minus 3x plus 12. This one has a less than below, greater than and below, and less than. So our answer is, as we said, A. You're just trying to determine the inequality sign. Number 9. According to the graph, which point does not lie in the solution set? This is very easy to do. Just plot the points and see if they end up in here. So -4, 1. So we should always start at the origin and back 1, 2, 3, -4, and up 1. And we look at that and they go, yep. Yes, that's a point in the solution. So we're looking for the not. So the next one is -2 plus 2. And again, that's in the solution, so that's a yes. We have -5, -5x, 0, right on the line. So that one's yes. So hopefully our last one works and is not in solution. So if we go -3 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we see that's not in the solution. So our answer is D. And that completes the second page of our practice test.